And I got into sustainability through my friends at school. When we finished school, we actually wanted to begin and doing something for the environment. So we created a team called Time for Action, because 10 years ago, we believed it was time to act for the environment. And this has led me to a wonderful journey of coordinating national volunteering campaigns with my friends and mobilizing 1% of the population in a single day, and also to being trained by Al Gore to talk about climate reality and being a European Climate Pact ambassador. And in this wonderful journey, around a year and a half ago, I was introduced to Leah through a mutual friend of ours. And that was the first time I heard about Ecogenia. So fast forward to the present day, as we are getting ready to build back better, as we are getting ready to build back greener, Ecogenia kicks off this series of sustainability talks. And we're all here ready to learn what Ecogenia has been up to, and actually hear about it, not from me, but from the two co-founders, Leah Papazoglou and Erika Spagakou. So Leah, Erika, hello, welcome.
Hello.
Hi,
And
hi, Anastasis. Hi,
so
everyone.
great to have you here, and thanks for the honor of to host this first webinar series. So I think it's about time, let's hear a bit more about you. Introduce yourselves to Ecogenia and the world.
Okay, Erica, should I go first?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Leah Papazoglou, or as my American mother would say, Papazoglou, depending on the audience. I change how I say my last name. I'm sure a lot of Greeks can relate to this in the US and abroad. I'm currently living in California. So I'm in Oakland. It's morning here, Kalimera from California. And I was born and raised in the States. I was actually born in New York and went to school in New York and was very much raised kind of in the Northeast, but I'm now in California. I'm eager to get to Greece, hopefully soon. We'll talk more about our plans here in a little bit. But my father's from Xanthi, so we come from Northern Greece. He moved here to the States for school when he was 18. Again, I'm sure a story many Greeks can relate to. And stayed, raised a family, and with that, we had a very strong connection to Greece. We would go back quite often every summer, or Yaya and Papu would come to the States. So it's still very close to my heart, even though I did grow up here in the States, have very, very strong connection with family and friends and peers all over Greece at this point. So very quick introduction about myself. You're going to hear more from me and why I'm inspired and why I'm motivated by this whole crazy story in a bit. So with that, I'll kick it over to Erika to introduce herself.
Thank you, Leah. And thank you everyone for joining, and Anastasis for being with us and hosting this discussion today. I'm Erika Spagakou. My story is a bit more boring than Leah's. Born and raised in Greece. All my family is in Greece, so my ties to the country are very strong. But I left the country 10 years ago now, or 11 years, in pursuit of postgraduate studies abroad, and later on, professional training. And I found myself having been abroad now for 10 or 11 years, as I said, but with a lot of appetite and hope that one day I'll be able to return, and in returning, giving something back and doing something good for the country. Hence, I'm here today. But yeah, as I said, I grew up in Greece, where I studied political science and public administration, and I moved on to pursue my postgraduate studies in environment and sustainable development. And that's when I knew I was very passionate about the topic, and I wanted to dedicate myself to the cause. And yeah, fast forward 10 years later, I was put in touch with Leah through a common friend, and the rest is history. We'll tell you more about it in a bit, but that's me in a nutshell.
Right, and if that's a boring story, I don't know what an interesting one is, Erika. So, wow. And talking about the rest of the history, so Leah, what was the inspiration behind Ecogenia?
Yes. So I graduated from university in 2009 when it was a very challenging time as a young college graduate to be entering the job market. If that year rings a bell for anybody, it's because it was kind of the height of the recession here in the States. So I just looked it up before this webinar, and actually unemployment was about 10% for the US when I graduated. So there really were very few job prospects for my peers. And at the time, Obama actually tripled the size of a program called AmeriCorps to try and get young people to work to fill this gap. So I signed up for this program, and I have no idea what really I was signing up for, but it was a big opportunity at the time. That's kind of all I knew. And in entering the program, I learned so much about, the needs of New York City, the needs of the community, the pressing needs that these communities were facing during the recession. And we were being trained and mobilized to help fill those needs and work with nonprofits and NGOs to help them meet those needs during this time of crisis. So it was very meaningful, very fulfilling for me. It gave me a purpose during a very challenging time. And it also gave me a lot of training and hard and soft skills. It was my first job. So from there, I actually was then employed by the nonprofit that I did my year of service with through AmeriCorps for 4 more years. And then I did AmeriCorps a second time as a career change. So the first time it was really out of, I don't want to use the word desperation, but essentially it was the only opportunity that I saw for myself to get some work. So it was practical. It was a practical decision. And the second time it was more strategic to gain skills in the renewable energy industry. So I actually did AmeriCorps a second time, moved to California, and started working through AmeriCorps at a nonprofit that was providing solar for low-income families across the US. So it was my opportunity to get skills in the solar industry, in the renewable energy space. So those two experiences really transformed my life, gave me opportunity, gave me training, opened up my career in ways that I, really just found invaluable. And simultaneously, while I'm having these experiences over the course of 10 years, of course, I'm going back to Greece, visiting with family and friends, and feeling and seeing firsthand how challenging of a landscape it is in Greece, similar to what I was experiencing in 2009, but even more challenging, right? The unemployment rate is, I mentioned earlier, was about 10% in the States when I was feeling very hopeless at the time. It's still at about 17% nationally. And for young people, younger than 28, it's even higher, closer to 32%. So knowing that and seeing how this experience is actually creating this reality for my generation and younger in Greece, I was always thinking in the back of my head that a similar program probably could do quite well in Greece. And I was always thinking, how could I bring something like AmeriCorps into the Greek reality, right? To mobilize and train young people, because certainly, as I'm sure most people here would agree, there is not a lack of work in Greece. There's plenty of work to do, especially in the name of sustainable development. It's just about connecting the dots and helping young people, again, get trained and mobilized to actually meet those needs, just like how AmeriCorps does. So that's the inspiration behind the idea, is kind of through those direct experiences that I had, and thinking for years that something like this could be brought into the Greek reality. And so I'm finally doing it with the help of an incredible team and with my co-founder, Erika, who I've been able to connect with virtually. It's quite surprising that we've never met in person, none of us, and we can talk more about the COVID reality and how that's shaped our work. But meeting these Greeks from all over the world that are interested in going back and giving back to Greece, and also the Greeks that we have in Greece that want to be mobilized for sustainable development, pulling all these resources and inspiring people together is making this idea that I had a reality.
Wow, just wow. And speaking of Greeks all over the world, guys, as you hear us, you can type into the chat your thoughts, your comments. Did you know about the service year model? I mean, before I met Leah, I had no idea. And if I knew, perhaps I would have gotten one of those, really, actually. So moving over to Erika. So we understand how this can work for the NGOs, but what is it in this one for the Greeks or for the Greek companies? How do you envision the Ecogenia model working in Greece?
Absolutely. Thank you, Anastasis. So I'll also take you a bit back. When I left the country as well in 2010 to go and pursue my postgraduate studies in London, actually in the UK, I felt like I was not necessarily caught up with my peers. There were definitely skills in the academic front that I was lacking from, from being able to collaborate in a team on a group project to doing research, at least as per the criteria of that program. I felt like there was so much more skill that I could have acquired at university, but I felt like I was not necessarily given that opportunity at the time and within the ecosystem that I had experienced. So meeting Leah and hearing about the program and coming to understand what her reality had been like and the opportunity that she had been given at the time, because as Leah said, we came to the job market both around the same time, and in the midst of the economic crisis, that reality for Leah meant that she could go to apply to AmeriCorps and find a job opportunity there. For me, if I were to pursue jobs in Greece at the time, I would probably be told that I don't have working experience, that there's no positions, right? So if a program like that existed, and this is what we're trying to do now, it would allow young Greeks to get the valuable working experience that is required to enter the job market, which is it's an oxymoron and a paradox, really, right? Because it's like, okay, you require 5 years of professional experience, but you're not hiring me to give me that. So how am I supposed to ever get to that standard, right? And to be able to offer back. So what's in it for the Greek youth is that development of those soft skills of understanding what the market needs, of developing that sustainability, workforce mindset, but also understanding sustainable development and understanding what are the principles and how that applies to Greek reality, right? We don't want to be in the business of throwing catchy words around. We want to be the ones that really make all of this digestible for the youth and show them how, okay, I'm a citizen. I hear that there's so much responsibility that I have towards my state and towards my country, and now I have the tools. I understand how I can be of help. I have the tools, and actually, it's also interesting for me as a career prospect. And sustainable development is good for it's good for the country, it's good for the planet, it's good for the youth. So I think that's what's in it for them. At the same time, we're supporting what Ecogenia aspires to do is to support the third sector in Greece. So we've seen over the past year, we've had the luck of speaking to many co-founders or founders of NGOs like yourself, and the broader nonprofit community in Greece. And what we've come to realize is that it's people that have their day jobs and then take their own time to volunteer to create grassroots initiatives to push forward that kind of sustainable agenda for the country. And you think, okay, someone needs to be able to push to be able to offer more resources to these people to do what they're doing, because it's noble work, yet it seems like it's always at the expense of their time or even their own money and resources. So this is the kind of gap we hope to be able to fill with Ecogenia. So if I can quickly talk about our model, what we're hoping to do is be the matchmaker between unemployed young Greeks at the age of 18 to 28 that are looking to work in the field of sustainable development, and match them with NGOs, possibly private sector, but initiatives on the ground that are that are fostering community sustainable development at the community level, and so provide the host sites the resources to fulfill their mission, while at the same time training the youth to do that kind of work, right? So really push civic engagement and develop a sense of responsibility, a sense of active citizenship. So it's also a cultural shift that we're hoping to achieve through Ecogenia. So I think that's what's in it for everyone, a win-win scenario.
Wonderful. And the data speaks for itself. There is really a need to push in that area. On the latest report, Greece is in the last few places among the whole European Union in terms of sustainability progress. So there is ample room for development and even a need for development, I would say, as we approach the decade of action, as we are trying to build back after a pandemic that has significantly stagnated progress on this front. And as we see a new Green Deal coming up, as we see the recovery coming up, what is the context for Ecogenia there? How does Ecogenia fit into this whole initiative on a national and an international level? Erika, you can go first, and then we
So
can clear the
yeah,
same question to everyone here as well.
yeah, so I'll bring it back to that awareness raising and educational aspect, if you will. Again, we're not, we feel like there's a lot of, because as a Greek that left the country but was born and raised there, I don't want to be, I hate when the rhetoric is very critical of the country. So to my, what I've experienced in the past year talking to all these people, to all people in the sector, as I mentioned before, is that there's so much knowledge that people hold. There's so much appetite for work, and there's so much hope and ownership of turning the current situation around, that we don't want to sound like prophets of change that are coming in to change everything, right? I think what we're hoping to do is to create that, to basically piece everything together, to work on that awareness raising about, okay, what is the global framework around sustainable development? Why are these two words used so much right now? Why is it an imperative of our times? What is the European legal framework within which Greece operates, and what are the obligations of Greece as a member state of the European Union on that front? How does that affect me as a citizen? How does it speak to my reality, to my everyday? How does it change my everyday reality? What is it that I can do on my everyday life to help, achieve those big worded goals, and raise awareness around all of that and the implications it has. So I think as I said before, there's so many initiatives on the ground. We've spoken to so many incredible people that are doing work, with plastic pollution, with reforestation. Greece suffers from bushfires every summer, and there's an amazing uh, NGO working to We for All, as you might know them, and working to put trees where the fires have flattened everything out, and I think what what it what it means for us is that we have the space to come in and work to piece together, as I said, all of those different aspects and create that, really boost that awareness and make it part of the Greek identity. And if I may go a bit melodramatic here, we are, as Greeks, we always speak about our philotimo, right? And our spirit of philoxenia. And how does that translate? For me, it's very important to see how that translates to me as a Greek citizen. how can I, because of course, when my friends come from abroad, right, I give them the best time in Greece. And when I find myself in groups with friends, I always speak about this philotimo. But how do I actually put it into practice in my active citizenship, despite all the negative that we've been hearing all these years? How do I manage to not turn my spirit, to keep my spirits up and turn all of that energy into something good, instead of something that drags me down and makes me feel hopeless and that there's nothing that I can do to change the situation? I think Leah would probably add to this from her own reality.
Really is a cultural change. And now let's go across the Atlantic, the other continent. So, Leah?
Yeah, I would just add, so as a sustainability professional as well, Erika and I both occupy very different spaces too, which has been really helpful as we've been building this vision together. We just each offer such different perspectives from literally different parts of the world. California is leading in the US around, sustainability and climate action work. And, Erika's in the center of like some of the most interesting renewable energy conversations happening out of Abu Dhabi. So considering all of that, one thing that I found really inspiring over the past few years as I evolve in this space is the idea that every job is a climate job. It doesn't matter if you are a product engineer, if you are CEO of a company, if you're a janitor of a building, we all have a responsibility. And that sense of responsibility for sustainable development, for climate action, is not yet embedded in every job. And so what I'm excited about with Ecogenia is this idea of maybe a young person in Greece hasn't necessarily figured out how they can find a job that will allow them to make a difference and progress sustainable development, right? But for example, as an accountant, you can help your boss think about ways to move some money around to invest in some renewable energy or some kind of sustainable strategy, right? You literally see the numbers and the data, which I'm sure Anastasis can appreciate, and how you're spending your money and how you could move things around in that way. Or if you're a janitor, what cleaning products are you using and how much waste are you seeing in a building at the end of the day? There's so many opportunities for all of us, no matter what role we have, in terms of like a literal job task. There's ways to get creative in thinking about what we can do, how we can empower ourselves in our roles to make a difference. And I think that is a mindset that I think a lot of people are struggling with globally. It's not a unique problem to Greece, but I'm excited to bring this mentality, right? Training for young people to think about critically, how can my job moving forward help advance the sustainable development goals for Greece, right? And also helping the corporate sector and the private sector in Greece think about hiring these sustainability minded and these sustainability trained young people and what it could mean for them, right? Maybe some of these companies in Greece or people in the private sector it's a very hard nut to crack. We're all trying to figure it out in the climate space. But if they have the ability to have a pipeline of trained green workforce to bring into their work and their ethos and help them think through some of these problems, I think that could be a massive win for the sectors across Greece. So that's something that I find personally inspiring, is this idea that every job is a climate job. And I think we really want to create an ethos of that and this sense of civic responsibility, right? So even if maybe it's hard to make a difference in your job, right? You can always have that as a goal, but there's also a space that you can occupy as a citizen. What are you seeing in your community? How can you help educate and inspire your peers and your community to help advance sustainability as well? We all should feel empowered to do that in our spaces. So yeah, so that's something that I'm excited to bring. Erika, yeah, please.
If I may add to this, thank you, Leah, for pointing this out, because I feel like almost, when we think about civic engagement and, okay, what is it that I can do? And then you start thinking, right? And we're thinking about if developing civic or accelerating civic discourse in Greece, it may sometimes also feel overwhelming. Like, okay, so here comes Ecogenia, and there's these two Greeks living abroad who are telling us that in our reality as Greeks, it's all about us developing a sense of giving back to the country and giving back to the state and the community, and that might feel overwhelming and daunting. And I thank Leah for saying this, because civic discourse is not us or the sector, the third sector, preaching to its individual and saying, you know, this is your footprint, this is your job, this is the responsibility you have. It's about working with the private sector, it's about working with the government, with local governments, authorities, which we're actually very happy that we're already having the endorsement and validation from, to a certain extent, within our capacity, from doing this for a year from different parts of the world. But we're seeing different actors coming around the table, and this is what's going to make this conversation successful at the end of the day, right? It's not going to be a one-person job. It's not going to be one part of society feeling the responsibility and the weight more than another. And this is what sustainable development is all about. It's about bringing everyone around the table and seeing what are the equitable ways in which we can advance those agendas and those goals. Yeah, and I think that's a very important point to make. And that spirit of collaboration is what we've also set out to do from the beginning, because from the very start, we said, okay, that's great, but this is our perception, which is limited because we understand our limitations at this stage. So the first thing we need to do is we need to have focus groups with, different groups, with, be it NGOs, be it private sector, be it local government, to understand the intricacies of what this means for everyone, how that translates for everyone around the table. And I think that kind of collaborative discussion is what catalyzes sustainable development.
It's a great point, Erika, and I'm very happy to let you know that this sort of systemic mindset is starting to catch on in Greece and in organizations in Greece as well. Recently, we had a climate change sort of lab to map the system of climate change in Greece, among others. And it is quite important to understand the intricacies and use all the tools given in order to facilitate long-lasting change. And actually, frankly, we don't have the time to do this. We're just a few years before we need to achieve our targets and do actually the best we can. So with that in mind, Leah, how do you see technology and data-driven work becoming part of your work at Ecogenia? I'm sure you need to use all the power you can get at this point to achieve this goal.
I mean, lucky for us, we have a very data-centric advisor, you. I'm very thankful for that. But, one thing that Ecogenia benefits from at this stage, we do have a little bit of a roadmap, right? We have the Sustainable Development Goals that also have quite specific, objectives and aims within each of them. There's 17 goals, and I encourage all of you, if you haven't checked out, in detail what they are, please do that after this webinar. But in addition to that, in terms of our model, again, we're trying to create something similar to AmeriCorps. We're not trying to bring AmeriCorps to Greece, trying to create a Greek version of that, right, in the Greek context. There is also a French version called Unicité. I apologize for the French speakers here because I know I have a terrible French accent. But the French program as well, which was also inspired by programming in the States, but they brought it into the French context. We have those two best practices to look towards in terms of what they're measuring, what are their metrics for success, what have the challenges that they faced, right, and how we can improve on them. So thinking about those metrics for the models that we're trying to adapt from, we have the benefit of that, right? We're not creating something completely from scratch. So of course, we're going to use our mentors and advisors from Unicité and AmeriCorps to help guide how we should shape it here in Greece, and also tap into our experts like Anastasis. And we have several other advisors that are incredibly knowledgeable about the context in Greece itself and how we can help advance, certain aspects of sustainable development in Greece? Where are the priorities? Where should we focus on first, right? Because we aspire to be a big national program and have cohorts, Ecogenia cohorts all over Greece, but we have to start somewhere, right? So where are we starting? Being really thoughtful about that and how we're measuring success. So Erika, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, but I will just say I've been very, very thankful for the roadmap we have and the experts that we've been surrounding ourselves by that think about this space a lot, right? The data space and how we can advance sustainable development in Greece. So we've been very deliberate with who we're surrounding ourselves by and that spirit of collaboration, as Erika said.
I'm just gonna add very quickly that we're probably going to touch on this a bit later, but in our different applications of, because we're in a pilot stage, and in our different applications of this model to bring it to the Greek reality, we're going to be testing the different scenarios and how these apply. And as Leah said, data is very important in that sense. So as we do this, it's going to be a lot of trial and error, and it's the data that's going to be showing us the way of what, okay, I think that doing this, which I experienced, Leah saying, which I experienced in America, it's going to be very successful, but then we apply it and we see that it's actually not working for the Greek context. And then that's where we're hoping that data will be, the decisive factor. So thank you, Anastasis, for that in advance.
You're welcome in advance. So right, let's talk a bit about the present, Erika. So where are you now with Ecogenia? What has happened this past year where we've all been, in our homes, far from each other?
Oh my God. Okay, so let's talk about Ecogenia. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to our friend Rosina, who's connected, because she was the one that brought us together. I think more or less a year ago from today or so, Leah and me connected via email. And, after a very convincing exchange and Leah recruiting all her charm and convicting power, convincing power, we found ourselves working, from different time zones. So, and really deciding that we're going to turn the COVID lockdown time into something very useful and productive. So through a lot of outreach, we managed to create a very strong, Leah spoke about this a bit, but a very strong team of advisors, subject experts from, from policy experts to data scientists to environmentalists to to really to people that have done this in the European context and know the the European legislation around this very well, because we don't want to be out of place, right? So as Leah said, we've surrounded ourselves with very targeted expertise. And from there, as I mentioned before, we managed to get the ears of a few key stakeholders in the government and in local at the local government level as well. So at this stage, we find ourselves having agreed on 2 pilot applications of the Ecogenia program, one of it being in Chania. We're going to be working with the municipality of Chania to implement an enrichment program around sustainability with school students, high school students, but possibly other vulnerable societal groups, like possibly the elderly. So that's something that we're currently exploring, and then we're also going to be working with the municipality of Dorida in Orinoco Nafpaktia, where we're going to be mobilizing Ecogenia members to be opening hiking trails and to basically support ecotourism and build a stream of ecotourism in the region. So, of course, right now we've put everything on paper. We've put our roadmaps of how to implement those programs on paper. And we've done our focus groups, and we've studied, and we know what the youth is seeking to get out of this, and we know what these NGOs or these local government actors are trying to would hope to get out of this, what would be the added value for them. But we're finding ourselves in a place where our needs are increasing, and so we need to expand our human resources, but also resources to be able to implement those programs. So we're currently in our fundraising stage, which Anastasia, you might know, is an intensive, a work-intensive stage in any nonprofit's development. And so yeah, we've launched a crowdfunding campaign, but also collaborating with different nonprofits to seek funding and see how we can tap on those resources that will help us implement our programs.
So
Leah, I don't know if
more about this
there's anything
crowdfunding campaign. Where can I find details about that one, maybe?
That's nice. Leah,
Yeah.
you want to go, or
Yeah, I think actually,
right.
Celia or Damien, if you wouldn't mind putting it in the chat, that sounds like a great idea. But many of you probably have seen our efforts. We're trying to raise awareness around our crowdfunding campaign across our social media platforms. And one other thing I'll just add, I'm sure it'll be in the chat here in a moment. But if you are eager to check out our crowdfunding campaign, there's actually a lot of information on there about more about our model, more about the work that we've done and the plans that we have, links to our website and all of our social channels as well. But one thing I also just want to add about the last year of foundation building is, I mean, it's been pretty incredible that I feel like I know Erika like a sister at this point. Our team has, we meet multiple times a week throughout all kinds of different time zones. You can just tell by the lighting in our room that, again, it's morning here in California and it's the evening in Abu Dhabi, and Erika has been working very late evenings and I've been working very early mornings, trying to make sure that we have time together. So it's been incredible to feel that COVID reality of virtual working and seeing how quickly our team has adapted to creating a collaborative environment virtually, having never met one another. And one thing that I'll say was really important to me when I finally decided to, take a dive into the deep end, if you will, by getting this program started. Initially I didn't really have anybody in the Greek context to speak with. I had my AmeriCorps friends, who are some of my closest friends. Some of them might even be on the webinar. Hello. And they've been very encouraging, of me to pursue this in the Greek context, but actually speaking with Greeks about it became a very intimidating task. So shout out to Damien Nos, who is a very close family friend of mine, who was my initial thought partner on this. He is, 22, he's a student, and his perspective on, this is an interesting program and this could definitely be something that my friends and myself would be interested in doing. And so starting with that validation from the young people themselves about whether this was actually a good idea is where we started, right? Is where I started with Damien, is just simply talking with young people and seeing if this is something they would actually sign up for. And once we got that validation, then I started talking to basically anybody that would listen to me in Greece virtually, because at this point, COVID had hit hard and we were all in front of our computers. And I was speaking with Greeks that I was finding on LinkedIn or within networks and friends, and it just kind of kept building in this way. And it was very important to me from the beginning to find someone that is Greek, is a native Greek. I wanted this program to feel owned and operated in the Greek context by Greeks, right? I'm very aware that I'm the Greek American elephant in the room. And I didn't want this to feel like a program from abroad coming into Greece, right? I wanted it to be co-created with a team of Greeks for Greeks. So the intention, I should also just say, long term has always been, when I was when I was kind of searching for my co-founder, Eric and I always joke it was a bit like dating, right? I'm like trying to find the right fit, and because a friend introduced us, it became a very organic connection, and it became very clear to me very quickly that she would be an amazing kind of embodiment of the spirit of Ecogenia and the direction we wanted it to go. So the goal over time is for Erika to be the person running the organization in Greece, and for me to certainly help and be involved as much as I can. But it's very, very important to me, as the person who had the crazy idea, right, to start, that this feels authentically Greek, because it is, right? So that's just an aspect of the co-creation this past year that I feel like is very important to highlight. And Erika does keep speaking about the focus groups we've had, and that's been a just invaluable part of the process, is hearing from NGOs in Greece. What is it like to be a nonprofit in Greece? What are the challenges? How can we help you? We don't want to recreate or duplicate anybody's efforts. We only want to uplift everybody's efforts in Greece, especially to advance sustainable development, right? And to help fill the gaps by mobilizing and training a workforce to support all of these efforts. So just a couple more things I wanted to add to all of that. And yeah, Anastasis, please save me from blabbing more and more, but that's a little bit more about, my process for the past year and what it's looked like.
And thank you for sharing, Leah. And I have to say, the inspiration of getting best practices from other countries and bringing them back to our home country, whether you've lived here or whether you've come here like for the holidays and the sun and the nice beaches. This is one of the greatest strengths of our diaspora. We have people in this webinar from France and Netherlands, Abu Dhabi, the United States. This is why it's so important. And I sort of felt it myself when I was living in the UK and I was jumping on a plane back to Greece to go and clean up, another forest, to go do another reforestation. And it is what can really make a difference right now in the decade of action. So, Leah, where do you see Ecogenia going in the next 5 to 10 years? Obviously, you mentioned you want to be like chill back in the States, relaxing.
Yeah, the big vision for Ecogenia is for this to be a national program, right? In AmeriCorps, here in the States, and with Unicité in France, when you turn 18, you have the opportunity to sign up for either program, and you could get, again, trained and mobilized for a year of service or your term of service, anywhere within the country. So we do envision something similar, where in Greece, we would have programming. We would be partnering with municipalities, nonprofits, community organizations across Greece that have needs, and we would be recruiting, training, and mobilizing young Greeks to help go all over Greece and help these nonprofits do their work. And then hopefully also in that process, we're creating, again, this green workforce that will then go and work at these growing private sector companies as their needs grow as well. That's the big vision. Of course, over time, we're trying to scale our pilots. So Erika mentioned our 2 pilots. We do envision, just like AmeriCorps, just like Unicité, that Ecogenia cohorts of young people can do all kinds of work, from trail building to reforestation projects, to working with kids in after-school programs, to adult education on recycling programs, helping municipalities think about their infrastructure around that, helping rural villages and these beautiful mountains that many of us are familiar with in Greece think about how to bring ecotourism to those regions. So, I mean, the projects are endless. I'm sure everybody here could think of 5, 10, 15 different project ideas for Ecogenia cohorts. And that's the exciting part, is that there's just endless opportunities to get these young people working in really exciting project areas. So that's the vision, is that ultimately any young person in Greece that wants to, again, sign up for a term of service with us would get paid for their time, training, and then they would actually get practical experience working working across Greece on one of these project areas. So that's definitely the big picture vision. Erika, I don't know if you want to break that down any further, especially for some more short-term aspects of our work.
Yeah, I think Leah, you've covered it. I think what is just to come back to a point from earlier, what I think is very important for us is to really, again, because I want to be. I'm very my friends and family who are also here, hello, know that I'm very theoretical in my thinking, and so for me, what is very interesting to see is how we foster that behavioral change and how, you know, what are the hypotheses we're testing as we do that, and what is the, you know, the framework, the thought framework behind really pushing for that cultural shift as we discussed. So I mean, on the link that we've shared on the chat, you can see more about the pilot programs and what it is we're trying to do in either of them, as Leah discussed. But I think we'll be going into those with really, you know, sustainable development is all about when you leave from a place, whatever you've done has left something behind, has left an infrastructure behind that works without you, the external actor, needing to be there anymore, right? So, and that's why it's sustainable. So what I think we will be going into our pilot programs with is, okay, we've taken these young Greeks and we've gone to a mountainous village in Dorida, and we've opened these hiking trails, and really a year from that, how does that look? 2 years from that, how does that look? Looking back at those data, right? Because of course we start this with dreams of making it a national program, but in terms of the short goals, learning, adjusting, making those adaptations where we need, so that we don't, you know, that this becomes knowledge owned by the local stakeholders and the local youth. You know, I want to be receiving phone calls of people saying, I want to open a local chapter of Ecogenia here, and I want to, you know, we're still figuring all of that out, but that's what I think for me would be very rewarding. If everyone, the word speaks for itself. If everyone comes to this and say, you know what, this is my Ecogenia now as a Greek youth. This is my, this is me reclaiming ownership and really feeling this is a space that I can now control, contribute to, and have positive outcomes for in a sustainable manner come out of these projects and interventions. Yeah.
Erika, so Anastasia, I'm going rogue here. I would love it if Erika, and then maybe Anastasia as well, for the American audience, or maybe for the Greek Americans like myself who don't speak Greek as well as we should, can you talk about the name a bit, about our name? Because I think it has such deep meaning, and Anastasius has also been very validating with our name selection. So can you speak about what the name means? And anyway, that would be great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start. Sorry, Erika. I have
no.
So yeah, for the past 10 years, we've been like running volunteering campaigns where people come together, people who have never met in person, a bit like you two now, or like the whole Ecogenia team right now. They come together and they organize volunteering and environmental events all over the country on the same day. And sharing that purpose makes us feel like a family, Ecogenia. So Ecogenia is family in Greek. And it's a phrase we've been using for the past 10 years, like, because we do feel like a family. And when we meet in person, finally, it's that moment of clarity where you really feel like you know the other person, even though it's the first time you've ever seen them in real life. So in these 10 years, not once did we ever think to spell this name the way Leah did. It's such an amazing name. If I could turn back time, I would go back and do it first. I have to say that Leah, it's an amazing name for an amazing purpose, and I loved it like since the moment I saw it spelled in this way. It captures the whole mindset we have to have behind, bringing sustainability into our lives. And Leah, please let us know, how did you think of such a name? And Erika, what does it mean for you?
Let's start with
Can I go?
Erica.
Can I go
Yeah.
first? Yeah, I was gonna say, thankfully, you don't have to go back and reinvent the name, because you can just be part of Ecogenia, right? This is what we were just describing before. But I think when Leah first wrote to me, I think you didn't have the name yet. Is that correct? Yeah. So there was an exchange of emails, and then it took some time because, funnily, even though we were all stuck at home, we were working a lot, right, in the beginning. So it took some time for us to get connected and speak. And then I think before I spoke to her, I saw a blog post that she made on LinkedIn with a name, and I'm like, okay, I need in this. I want in, and I need in, because I've been ever since I moved abroad and left the country. I've always, I wasn't planning on staying abroad for the very long term. It was a short, like, I was going abroad to do my master's, and then perhaps like a year of internships at the time, right? I was 22, and then go back. I thought I'd be working in Greece, and that was always my plan. And then I found myself not being able to, not really having much prospect to return to the country. So ever since, I've been trying to see what are, initiatives like this that I can contribute to. And when I heard the name in a very serendipitous way, I thought, okay, this is what I've been waiting for this past 10 years, and it's finally going to work for me, because the name clicked with me immediately as well. And yeah, Leah, you can tell us what the inspiration was.
Yes, it's so, I love hearing native Greek speakers talk about the name, because for Americans who don't know the Greek language, obviously, it's harder to grasp, because there's so much. I'm being very stereotypically Greek right here, but the Greek language is so rich and words have such deep meaning that my experience speaking with Greeks, as soon as they see the word written or they hear us talking about it, it just clicks in a way that is so beautiful. So hearing you both speak about it, that's why I asked the question. It means a lot to me as well. But the inspiration from the name, I wish I could say I thought of it myself, but I did not. So Damien and I, who I keep referencing, we were running focus groups with young people. And at the same time, I'm speaking with my Greek friends. Actually, I think Angeliki, I think you're on here as well. I was speaking with some of my friends and family about a name, because a name gives so much purpose and it makes it real, right? So very early, I was speaking with Damien and my friends. I'm like, I need a name, because otherwise I keep calling it a green job training program for Greece, and it's just not catchy. It's not catchy. It doesn't make it fun. So I'm speaking with all these people. My father, to his credit, actually came up with the name first. But because he's my father, and because, like anybody with their parents, I just kind of kept it over here. Okay, like we'll see what kind of comes with the young people as we start doing focus groups. And Damien, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that organically in our focus groups with young people, with students in Greece, it also, the same name came up. And so we had kind of a match, if you will, from my friends and family, and also from young people. And it's, so we sort of like, okay, this has come up in two different places. And so then we started asking a couple more people, do you like this name? Do you like this name? And that's how it ended up sticking. So sort of a combination of friends and family, and then also from our focus groups with young people. So we could go back, Damien, and find in the chat who exactly we could credit from the focus groups, but it was great to see it, that spirit of the name kind of coming up in those different spaces. And the Greeks have, like Anastasis kind of explained, have been receiving the name very well. So I love it, and I love hearing Greeks describe it.
it's a beautiful name, and it really sticks on. And actually, ever since I posted about being in this Ecogenia from now onwards, people have been asking me how can they get involved with Ecogenia and how can they support you. So perhaps as we move on to closing and before we take some audience questions, you could be able to speak a bit about that.
Yes, sure. Thank you. So there's many ways to get involved with Ecogenia. Uh, from if you're an NGO, if you're a nonprofit, and you want to come with us around the table as thought leaders and partners, as thought partners, to discuss how you can be involved as a host site later on in our programs, but also really tell us what your challenges are and help us think through some of these issues. We would welcome that. If you're a young Greek who would like to benefit from a program like this in the future, do drop us a note. We would love to hear from you and also hear what are the challenges you faced, be it at university or as you entered the 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 work uh, sector, and help us think through some of these questions as well. Now, if you're someone who wants to contribute to our crowdfunding, every contribution is helpful. We've dropped the link in the chat, and again, as Leah said, you can really read about Ecogenia in a lot of detail. We have nice flow charts about our model, which is perhaps a bit difficult to grasp at first, but for those that are not familiar with AmeriCorps, and so and then you can have a look at that and maybe visualize it a bit more and say, you know what, that's something I definitely want to contribute to, and be it $5 to 50 to more, that's very much welcome. And just to explain a bit more, what we're trying to do with that funding is to as we mentioned, I think both of us did, we've had the support of so many amazing people, some of them working 2 and 3 jobs, and then coming back home knackered in the evening and still getting on a call to, very sweet stone to help us think of some important Ecogenia questions, right? So we want to be able to have some funding to be able to pay them to continue offering their expertise and time to us. And also, every nonprofit has initial expenses like legal, accounting, so getting that set up. So that's the kind of funding that we're looking for right now with our seed funding, crowdfunding campaign. So where the money is going. And yeah, just if you're interested in Ecogenia in any way, again, if you're an NGO that wants to perhaps apply for more funding with us, our missions are aligned, we welcome any collaboration, and that's really, again, I want to repeat it, and I can't repeat it enough. This is what we're here to do, to hear, connect, collaborate, and advance our common causes for sustainable development. Leah, I don't know if you want to add to this, or
just very briefly, you covered everything perfectly, and I think over time, and this is related to Ricardo's question I'm seeing in the Q&A, we're in a startup phase, so we're building the foundation. Over time, we're hoping to, again, scale nationally. We want to build very diverse funding streams like any nonprofit, through grants, through individual giving campaigns like our crowdfunding campaign, through private sector relationships. So that will be critically important for us to have a sustainable financial security, right? Like any nonprofit. So, we absolutely do want to collaborate and work with some more official ministries over time. That is how UNICEF became very successful, and AmeriCorps has always been a federal program. So certainly we're hoping to build those relationships. We're already in discussion with some. We're just in the very beginning stages. And I think that will really help us create a sustainable financial model where we're having a strong value add for, the nation, for the whole country. And then of course, for individuals participating in the program, for the private sector, for the public sector, et cetera. So we are definitely hoping to build those relationships to your question, Ricardo. And it'll just advance as we build our foundation, right, it's just going to keep elevating in that way.
Awesome. So you guys know where to find Ecogenia. They're very responsive, very keen to connect, I have to say. So yeah, ladies and gents, now's your time. If you have any more questions, Celia, do you have any more questions from our participants?
Yes, we do. We have a couple of questions. One regarding what Leah said earlier about the shift in sectors. Would it require a major shift in the economy as well as in the local manufacturing level? This is from Dimitris. And Leah, I'll just let you answer.
Yeah, actually, so I'll definitely start. And I think Erika and Anastasis, would be very interesting to hear what you have to add as well, because this is a very important question, right? And something we ask ourselves often, are we going to be training young people for sustainability focused jobs that don't exist, right? So there is absolutely a call to action, if you will. And I think this is coming from the United Nations, the European Commission, everybody globally right now. There's a shift towards sustainable development, and the Greek economy has to adapt, right? And it's going to be a critical shift for sustainable development and for all of us to achieve the sustainable development goals. And we're hoping to help make that shift by creating the workforce. But of course, we're also, again, we keep speaking about the spirit of collaboration, right? We're hoping to bring to the table some of these private sector stakeholders to talk to them about their plans. How are they planning on advancing sustainable development? Do they have staff even thinking about this yet? And how can we help meet those needs, right? What are their strategic goals around this? How are they reporting on ESG? So the shift, maybe, and Anastasis, I'd be curious what you think. And we have, again, advisors. This is very important to point out, advisors in the sustainability space in Greece, helping us navigate this and build those relationships. But it's going to be a critical shift. I'd be curious, again, if Anastasis thinks it's happening yet, or where we are exactly in that process in Greece. But I think there's sort of endless opportunity for Greece to advance, because we're still very much in the beginning stages in Greece when it comes to how and where the private sector is, and especially around manufacturing, et cetera, for sustainability. So Erika and Anastasis, I'd be very curious to hear what you guys think and have to chime in.
Yeah, I think I'll just very quickly add to Leah's point. I think, there's or at least there was a few days ago, a huge discussion in Greece about wind turbines, right? And how, how that plays in with biodiversity and different, in different Natura protected areas, etc. And I think absolutely, it's again an issue of behavioral change at the institutional, private sector, but also public perception level, right? There's, when it comes to manufacturing, it's a demand and offer scenario as well many times. And, for example, with plastic consumption, it's so, we value comfort and convenience over what's good for the environment, for the planet, for us as individuals, because, it's not just I throw garbage on the floor and it looks dirty. On a bigger scale, health is affected because rivers and water resources are polluted. So people's human health is affected. So really, I think, again, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier about awareness raising and really amplifying the volume of civic discourse around these issues. I personally believe, again, it might be my fixation with sustainability, but I personally believe that this kind of conversation should be occupying much more public space than it currently is. And then you see how that applies to the different sectors, and that discourse is strengthened. So Anastasis, I don't know, from your perception of the reality in the country, if you wanna add to this.
Well, before we zoom into Greece, let me just say that when you say nations like Saudi Arabia and countries in the similar investing heavily in solar energies, then that shift is happening already.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to ensure it happens in a just way, in a fair way, in Greece as well. There are some strategies in place, and that's a good thing. And that's where Ecogenia can also, in my mind, play a great role in becoming the link between the high-level strategy and the local level application of that strategy. And guys, we don't have a lot of time to do this, right? Get it done like yesterday, which is why I was really happy to hear that Ecogenia managed in a year of social isolation to land two pilots, to begin a crowdfunding campaign, to expand the team. I'm so looking forward to seeing where this journey leads you. So if we don't have any more questions, well, I'd like to invite Leah and Erika to address our wonderful audience one last time with some closing remarks, some thoughts maybe.
Leah, do you want to go first?
I'll go first. And Dimitris, I know you also had a question about our aims and targets, so we can wrap up with a bit of that. It's kind of a good question to end on too. So this, as Erika said, we're in foundation building year. Our goal is to pilot February of 2022, which is basically tomorrow. So our aims and goals, at least broadly speaking, is to pilot for the next 3 years to, again, get some really good data, understand our impact, understand how we should adapt and change the model to scale appropriately. So we, again, our vision, big picture, is to create a service year, although it may not be a full year, but a service year model for Greeks to sign up, get trained and mobilized in sustainable development, and actually work on practical projects with community organizations, NGOs, municipalities. We call them host sites, on a meaningful project related to sustainable development. So that's the work we're doing in a nutshell. We're piloting for a few years, hoping to scale broadly all across Greece so that we're advancing sustainable development for the country. We're training a green workforce. We're helping the private sector make this shift. So that's very broadly speaking, the short-term goals and kind of aims and targets and what we see for ourselves, across Greece in the future. But I will let Erika take us home with her final thoughts.
Thank you, Leah. I just wanted to thank everyone, first of all, for being here and listening to us for an hour and 15 minutes. And I hope that you've all benefited from hearing what our vision is in terms of, that hope that I was talking about initially. And of course, I just want to conclude by wishing that everybody's families are healthy, because this has been a very trying year for everyone. And thank you again for taking the time to be with us against that backdrop. And to just basically conclude on that note that really, coming out of that year where everything we knew was questioned and revised and reimagined, and there's new normals, isn't that an amazing message in its darkness, that there is a new normal for Greece? It's the one we've been building, the one we have, not Leah and me, all of us as Greek youth, as Greek diaspora, the one that we have the appetite, as I said, and the eagerness to establish and see through for our country. And yeah, really, I mean, if not now, when? If not us, all of us, who? So yeah, thank you all.
So with these messages, we're going to leave you here tonight on the first of the Ecogenia Sustainability Talks. Thank you for being here with us. Look into Ecogenia's social media for future talks. And if you'd like, just reach out to us and contribute to the vision for an eco generation in Greece. So have a great and safe night.